Hello, and welcome to another video from yours truly as we dive straight into the meat of it. If you haven't already heard, warriors have gotten a nice little buff on the side here, but not to raise anyone's hopes too much though, because these changes are mostly quality of life changes rather than any major buff, to be honest. One can only imagine the bamboozling that we were subject to a few weeks ago as we obtained super armor on our grapple move for the entirety of 15 minutes, until it was crossed out just like our meager existence in the meta. However, these beautiful quality of life changes do boost our standing to a tolerable level if they do indeed smooth it out as well as fix the bugs before truly rolling out the patch itself. Things to take note of before I get into the juicy bits for Warrior, though, are the changes affecting Ninja and Kuno. It is absolutely vital to max out Ground Roar if the change to their stealth goes through. The range increase on this skill will allow you to hit quite far away, and all it takes is one hit to land to break stealth. In all honesty, this change makes Warrior the biggest stealth counterpick if it indeed goes to the live servers intact. As such, make sure you have enough SP before it goes to the live servers if you haven't already gotten the skill maxed level. Well, first off, Executioner's keybinds was switched from E to Shift E. This change isn't anything too major, it's sort of a convenience feature for those that accidentally use E instead of grapple when you really want to use grapple before switching. It's one of those quality of life changes that makes sense in context, but the truth of the matter is that it was changed along with this patch so that you can proc grapple in Awakening form without triggering the Executioner buff itself when you attempt to grapple. Next up, we have quite a nice little change. For this change, we can use grapple while in our greatsword form. This change is also more of a quality of life feature because it isn't exactly game changing per se due to the inherent nature of our grapple. Because it is unprotected, the fact that you use this will be at your own peril should you fail to land the skill itself or have it resisted. What this means though is that grapple will be available in certain situations and scenarios without the need to rely on swap cooldown, meaning that you can create different combos with this change. Do keep in mind though that the skill will come out slower than if you were initially in pre-awakened form before using grapple. If you've ever used Scars of Dusk in awakened form, you will understand the slight delay that occurs. It might not seem like a big deal at first, but the fact is that using grapple at all will leave you very vulnerable to getting CC'd. Even further into this skill is the fact that instant grapple is an entirely different skill compared to takedown itself. Without instant grapple, it is almost laughable that you even attempt to grapple in greatsword form. While normal grapple is fine when you're swapping due to the speed at which you can chain it, using grapple without instant takedown off cooldown is akin to saying, "Please CC me." Fortunately, if you can pad your FPS to insane levels of girth, you can circumvent this issue because the game denies any knowledge that you even attempted to grapple in the first place. However, this can all be circumvented by block cancelling right before you want to grapple. This will be further explained later on in the video, but the concept behind this is by utilizing block to cancel into grapple instead of using swap to cancel into grapple. Doing so will make your grapple proc much faster. The difference between grapple and instant grapple remains, of course. Many thanks and credits to BSTG and Sensei for figuring this one out. As such, while being able to grapple in Awakened stance is a nice change, all that means is that our grapple options have expanded and combos can be adjusted for it. Those of higher FPS benefits from this change, while the lower FPS players will find this change rather minor in nature. Next up, we have this little change here, the fact that you can cancel any skill with, well, not any skill actually, because certain skills cannot be cancelled with guard and greatsword defense. This is a very interesting concept. It isn't the traditional cancel, no, this is literally blocking right after a skill. To start off, the list of skills that cannot be block cancelled in Awakening are 1. Slashing the Dead, 2. Reckless Blow, and 3. Head Chase. For Head Chase, though, there is something special about it that will be mentioned later on in the video. The list of skills that cannot be block cancelled in pre-awakened are Chopping Kick, Forward Slash, Charging Thrust, Grapple, Shield Strike, Jump Thrust, Counter, and, of course, Frenzied Charge, which I personally tested. And, no, you cannot block cancel Frenzied Charge, and this skill is worthless still, so don't bother ever going for it. That means you, QCP. That means you. And then there are, well, hopefully hot-fixed by the time it gets to the live servers, are these skills that cannot cancel properly. Knee Kick, Armor Break, and Deep Thrust. What happens when you knee kick with the block cancel is you lose all your stamina in practically no time at all. This is similar to the occurrence where you hold Q and Armor Break, where you lose all your willpower. As for Deep Thrust, the same issue occurs by holding Q and trying to Deep Thrust out of Q. To sum it up, this change allows a warrior to cancel most skills of their block move, which is more quality of life than anything else. It doesn't exactly change any playstyles per se, but it does allow for more protection overall. Now, to really tell you the truth, it doesn't actually matter that much because if your block is gone, so are you. So if you lose your block to the sheer AP values everyone has across the board, this change is minimal at best. What it shines at, though, is allowing for certain moves in Awakening to be cancelled correctly and protected if the block can handle the damage that comes through. For example, slashing into block is completely protected with the new slashing super armor fix at the end. In another example, you can Gravedigger and then block to protect the ending animation of Gravedigger. However, cancelling comes at a cost for certain skills. If you cancel Burning Moxie too quickly, for example, you don't get the willpower or the DP buff. Similarly, if you cancel other skills too early, their effects won't proc properly. Now, for a list of my personal notable cancels in Awakening form, these include cancelling Pulverize with Q, cancelling Merciless and Hilt Strike for DP buff, cancelling Overwhelm for down attack buff, cancelling Gravedigger mid-animation, cancel Balance Strike mid-animation, block quicker after Solar Flare, and tapping Q and spacebar at the same time, instead of holding Q and spacebar, which allows you to Armor Break spam. As for shield cancelling in Sword and Shield form, there are interesting combos I found with it, but besides that I don't really see anything noteworthy so far. First off, there is the new and improved Spear Cancel. It is literally block spear, block spear, block spear, and so on. This is a game changer because this allows you to remain practically steadfast, holding your ground instead of the old piercing spear cancel that requires you to position and move or find a wall to stop yourself from moving at all. The blocking portions also make it very nice to spam, not to mention the willpower cost was halved. By being halved, your willpower consumption is essentially lowered so much that you can almost spam spear indefinitely. Next up is a lackluster one where you can tap block and deep thrust. This procs a knockback every time, so maybe someone will find a use for it. It's nice and gimmicky, so maybe someone can incorporate it into a combo, but that's not really my thing. Next up we have 3 listed changes for Knee Kick, besides the very one at the end. Knee Kick, being a rather unorthodox skill, remains unorthodox with this update. I personally enjoy using this skill, but the key thing to understand here is that the range increase is barely noticeable. Think the old Balance Strike proc range, and that the stiff that procs if the skill is not in cooldown is almost negligible. After all, you can't exactly start a combo with a Knee Kick, and if you do try, you're probably gonna be the ones getting CC'd instead. So the real quality of life change, though, is the improved prevention to its trigger key, because it allows for Ground Smash to be usable in Awakening form without being hindered by Knee Kick. Of course, people who lock or spec out of it don't have to worry about this change at all, honestly. Basically, the changes here can be overlooked, but you could say it's a buff that doesn't help much of anyone currently. One of the biggest changes this patch, though, is the fixed ending animation of slashing the dead. It has hindered many a warrior who simply wished to use this skill because of how vulnerable one is at the end, while no longer it is safe at the end of the skill. However, the start of the skill is still CCable, so this is more of a fix than anything else. Think super armor, but actual super armor on slashing. Rejoice! Next up is also a great change. Piercing Spear's WP cost is decreased. This is huge for warriors. After being relegated to throwing spears, now we can throw even more spears, more efficiently. Not much to take from this other than the fact that the cost is basically halved, and then a new spear cancel might be coming soon, so live servers are something to be looked forward to. Rejoice once more. Next up, we have Balance Strike, which is kind of unusual at the moment. Basically, this increased distance requires you to input your right mouse button first over any directional key. So, on paper this looks nice, but right now there are two different results. After walking or head chasing forward, your balance strike only travels the original skill's distance if you just pressed RMB after you press the initial key inputs. This happens the same way if you cancel out with this skill if you don't use the right mouse button quickly enough. But after head chasing backwards, left, or right after Solar Flare, you travel the increased distance because of how keybinds work. Basically, the way to use the new distance is to use right mouse button before any other input like W. So the real input is to press RMB before W, and then you're all set for your balance strike. Essentially, anything that makes you go forward first, you have to release your W key and then press RMB and then reproc your W key. It's kind of strange, I know. I don't really understand it either, but hopefully, maybe it's just a bug, maybe it isn't. But for now, you can think of this as a buff overall to your movement and mobility because of the way Balance Strike works. Can I skip over this one? I don't. Yeah, okay. I mean, sure. What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? Well, for counter, this looks great on paper. This is very bad. I can't even believe they would have a worse way to say we buffed warriors than this line here. There's actually a forward guard in this. If you take a look at the clip I have playing right now, you can see that it has forward guard for 1 or 2 frames. Yeah, the forward guard exists for 1 frame and 1 frame only, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So this basically doesn't exist. Don't even think about using counter because it's protected, because it's really not protected. So if it comes to life without being worked out, then this is very minor and it won't help you at all. As for the ultimate ground smash's damage increase, it is quite noticeable, but okay, first let's make a checklist. Damage increase? Check. Super armor on frontal guard on it? Nope. Animation speed? Still slow as fuck. Worthless. Essentially nothing you need to know, and don't even bother with it too much because it basically changed nothing that was wrong with the skill. This is like giving absolute damage values to an outdated skill and expecting it to be good. Think ground slash. No, there are people who stick by ground slash. I guess it don't. Can we not get into territory where this is basically negligible at best? Maybe someone will find a combo that goes with it, but if you try to use this in large scale or anything at all, think of this as a finisher skill, and if it doesn't finish, then you're mostly screwed if the class has a grapple. Now, for the final and most important update. Well, actually, this isn't the final one, this is second to final, but The prize and jewel of this week's update is addition of super armor on ground smash. It's like a holy grail presented us right after fixing half of Slashing the Dead's problem by giving us a skill that is actually protected. No, Warcry doesn't count in counters, front of guard is basically non-existent. The true buff in these patch notes. Rejoice! There are many things you can do with this bad boy now you couldn't before, but do keep in mind that it suffers the same problem as grave digging and Slashing the Dead. The start of the animation is not user-friendly, it's not true super armor, it's probably desyncable and you can get CC out of it, but the middle and fine is basically all secure. It's true super armor, I guess, if you want to consider that as true super armor. As for its usage, I don't think it needs to be explained or expanded on other than the fact that it's protected now, so rotating super armor skills is viable if you can survive the sheer damage being pumped out. One neat little transition I found to be protected was pulverize into ground smash. Use it how you will. There are probably more protected combos to be had with this new change, so experiment away. To wrap it all up though, we have some extra changes listed at the end. These are cooldowns that will not be refreshed after repeated usage of these skills. The most notable ones are Chopping Kick and Piercing Spear, which have had their cooldowns refreshing every time you used it if they were on cooldown, turning it into an infinite loop of never being off cooldown. Counter's cooldown refresh disappearing is also good on the movement part of Whirlwind Strike. Knee Kick shouldn't be spammed anyway, so this change doesn't help too much. Kick and Charge Shield Strike, I have no comment because these skills will never see the light of day. Well, to wrap it up, that's all this patch has brought us. Things to take away. Too long, don't read, don't watch. 1. Ending super armor on slashing has been fixed. 2. Ground smash now has super armor. 3. Piercing spear willpower cost has been halved and potentially a new cancel. And 4. Discovered by Kisiro, there is a new way of head chasing in which you can hold Q and hold head chase, but I'm not too sure about the usage for now, but it's very fast, as you can see here. Well, these are the most important things to take note of this patch, and the others are mainly quality of life and doesn't boast much help realistically. After all said and done, I hope everyone enjoys the patch if it comes out right and bug-free. And hopefully, if there are more warrior buffs, I'll be here to cover them. A big thanks to everyone who stuck with Warrior, as well as the Warrior Discord itself. Without the combined presence of us together, the Warrior community would probably be in shambles already. Hopefully, the future shines brighter for us as we head off into a new year. Keep on fighting. This is Hole. Have a great day.